So today we will learn about how a hacker can hack your password. Make sure you watch till the end to understand the whole process, and I will also suggest some websites which can make sure your password is safe or not. So first we will need to know how passwords are stored when we try to log into any website. So websites basically store user information in a database. The database stores the username, passwords and other information so that the next time the user logs in, everything is as they left it. So basically when you sign up, the password gets hashed and it gets stored in a database. So the next time when you try to sign in, the password is matched with the database. If the hashes match, you will log in successfully, and if the hashes don't match, your login will get failed. So basically, instead of storing the passwords in a plain text form, they are instead put through a one-way hash function before being stored in the database. So in this picture, you can see the plain text, it gets into a hash function. There are various kinds of hash function. We'll see it later, and it gets transformed into a hash text. And when a user tries to log in with his passwords, the same method is followed. So now let me give some examples. So passwords are basically stored as hashes using a one-way cryptographic function. It's basically a mathematical function that takes an input and produces a unique string or characters known as the hash value or hash code. When a user creates or changes a password, it runs through a hash function to produce a fixed length string of characters. The hash, not the actual password, is stored in the system. During login, the entered password is hashed and the generated hash is compared with the stored hash. If they match, the access is granted. And so basically, the way the hash function works is, suppose your password is fox, it gets into a cryptographic function, and the result will be like this, which is like a mathematical function used. So the way it works basically is, suppose your password is fox, it gets into a cryptographic hash function, and the result you can see it's the hash function of the word fox. So this is how your password basically gets stored in the database. And there are various kinds of hash functions which we will see later on this video. So this is how basically a hash works, and it is also not reversible. Okay, so now we understand that how passwords are kept in a database. Let's look at some ways hackers use to crack them. So these are some ways hackers can hack your passwords. They can buy passwords from leaked database breaches, and they can also do phishing attacks, fake password reset emails, infecting your device with malware. They can do brute force attacks, dictionary attacks, and credential stuffing. They can also do shoulder surfing, and they can do man in the middle attacks, which is used in Wi-Fi hacking. They can also hack your phone, or they can use social engineering. So now let's look at a video clip of how easy it is to do social engineering and get passwords.
The most popular password in the United States is password 123. And as long as that's the case, we're vulnerable. So today we sent a camera around on Hollywood Boulevard to help people by asking them to tell us their password. And this is how that went.
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog's name and the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a 12 Papillon.
And what's his name?
Jameson.
Jameson. And where'd you go to school?
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What school?
Hillsdale Area Senior High School.
Oh, when did you graduate?
In 2009.
Oh, great.
So now let's look at some of the most common passwords people use. So these are the list of common passwords people basically use. Password 1 2 3 4 5 6, guess, let me in. So this is how easy some passwords are, and these are really easy to break into. So you should be careful about your password, and you should use password managers to manage it. So we now know how passwords are stored and different ways of cracking it. Now let's deep dive into it. There are basically two main factors that affect password cracking. They are the length of your passwords and the complexity. So it is far less flashy and potentially much more time consuming. According to the 2022 Hive report, password cracking typically involves brute forcing a password using various methods. To understand password cracking, you must first understand how passwords are stored, and I've talked about it in earlier in this video. So now you know how passwords are stored. Before attempting to crack a password, an attacker must retrieve the ciphertext value, often through man-in-the-middle attacks, hacked credential databases, or phishing attempts. Ultimately, the attacker can begin their work once the ciphertext value has been obtained, typically as a hash value. So now let's understand some concepts which we will need later on. So this is brute force attack. So in this attack, basically an attacker is there who tries every possible combination of characters until the correct password is found. So if the correct password is found, he gets a successful credential validation. So this basically works when your password is weak. So this is how brute force attack is done. So the next attack is called dictionary attack. So in this attack, there is a potential password list. So you can say this is a potential password list. This is the target hash we are trying to break. So this password list basically gets to a hashing algorithm, and this is the hash output of one of the words from this potential word list. And if the hash output matches with the target hash, we basically crack the password, and if it doesn't, we move on to the next type of attack. This method is more efficient than brute force attack. So the next thing is rainbow table. So this is basically a table which is pre-computed with hash values for a large number of possible passwords. So this is a plain text, and this is the hash value of this plain text. We will talk about rainbow table in another video. So I'm now in my Kali VM. The first thing we will need to do is start our hashcat, which is the tool we will use to crack our passwords. So next we will need to choose a word list, and for this tutorial we'll use the famous RockU word list. So remember, it's in the user share word list in the Linux. So now I need to go to Linux user share word list. So if I ls now, so you can see the word list we will use, which is present here, and it's the rocku.txt. Now we need the hashes. So suppose there are some hashes we have found in a data breach, and I've saved them in a file called example.txt. So this is the file I'm talking about, example.txt. So these are some hashes which I've saved here. It's called example.txt, and so the next thing we need to do is identify the hash type. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the hash, and I will go to it called crack station. We'll paste it here, and I will select it, and I will press crack hashes. So it has identified it, and it's the type of the hash is called MD5. So now we know the hash type of it. So now it's time to crack the hashes. So another thing you need to do is you will need to come to this example hashes page, and it will give us the hash mode we will need to use. So the hash name is MD5, and we'll need to use 0. It will get clear when you see the command we will need to use. So this is a list, comprehensive list of the hash names and the hash mode we will need to use corresponding the hash type. So now it's time to crack the hashes. Now that we know the basics of hashcat and where the hashes are located and the type of encryption, we are now ready to begin cracking the hashes. So the command is hashcat. So this is the command we will use. So this dash m0 basically used because it's an MD5 hash. And the next thing we have done is we have specified the hash file location where it is located, and the next thing is rocku.txt, the word list we are going to use against it, and this is used because we need to show the cracked password. So if I press enter now, so as you can see it has cracked the passwords. So this is the hash format, and this is the plain text format. I know these are some easy passwords, but you will find that people generally use easy passwords, and you will more often than not, and you will think here is the methodology used, and this is the purpose of this video, and make sure you don't use it for illegal purposes, and you use it for educational purposes only. So now let's look at some useful websites. So this is a website which you can use to identify the hash type, and this is a website, if you like type your password here, it will show you the amount of time it will take to brute force the password, so you can try it out and see how strong your password is. And this is the website we use to identify the hash. This is a website which will, like, if I show you, so this basically generated hashes of all kinds. So this is my name, which is in plain text. It has converted it into hashes of various kinds. So this is also a very useful website you can visit, and this is also another website which can be helpful for you, where you can find a lot of weak passwords. So this was all from me today, and I hope you like my videos and subscribe. So thank you.